On the show this morning, while it wasn't worth a change of season prediction or reason to get overly pumped up about the upcoming 2024 Black and Gold campaign, a 16-play, 95-yard drive led by Derek Carr against the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday night certainly is cause for hope. An offense that hasn't done much so far this preseason. Also, the first-string defense was lights out again, which could be a foreshadowing of things to come, we hope. We'll take positivity wherever we can get it because, unfortunately, we also have to talk about the race for QB2, and neither one of those guys look ready for prime time. We'll hear from Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, and Brian Brissy. We can't wait to hear what you, the listener, has to say on Mano a Mano Monday. We'll see what Gabe Henderson has to throw at me in the open. All that, and we end today's DAT with a tribute to a New Orleans sports broadcasting legend as we say goodbye to Ed Daniels, one of the best ever to report on our teams. It's all coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where are you at, New Orleans? Hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere out there who might have shed a tear or two Friday when they got the word about Ed Daniels. He certainly was one of us. That's who he was. We knew for a few weeks that it was probably coming, but it didn't make the news any easier to take. And we're going to dedicate today's show to Ed, and we're going to wrap up the show with a tribute to him in the extra point in 40 minutes or so. But we have plenty to get to before then. This is Dattitude episode number 268, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, August the 19th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry. You know that. Whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listen on demand to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. You know what Mondays are all about now. Right now, I'm trying to think of a better name. I have yet to hear one. I'm waiting for y'all to help me figure out a better name for what Mondays is going to be. Right now, I got Mano a Mano Mondays. I don't know. I think we can do better than that. So that is the at least the temporary name. If you got one, feel free. Gabe, Mondays with Gabe coming on in a sec to surprise me with something I most likely didn't know or throw something. Come at me, bro. Just come at me. Go ahead. And then it's me and you talking for 30 to 40 minutes before we get the extra point. You know how to be a part of this show. If you haven't figured it out already, well, you know, I don't know how to help you. I mean, all you do is you type in the comment on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching. And if you haven't already done so, look, it's growing day by day. Subscribers by the day. They're coming. I wouldn't say in droves. I'm going to be realistic. They're coming. Our YouTube page is steadily growing. If you have not already subscribed, make sure you do so. You will always know when we go on the air live. And you'll have access to all our shorts and our show. Most of them are, you know, little clips from the show. So there might be clips from you in there. So if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, make sure you do. Also, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like. We like likes. They're good. What do we have this morning so far? Because we're going to have, again, plenty of time to talk about all the things there are to talk about. But this show is going to be, I would say, 60% positive. Is that a record for, like, since the rebrand when talking about the Saints? 60% positive might be. A-Town, good morning. Jim, Gabe, Jerry, Rocky, and Chad. Everybody's here. Monday's montage. A look back at the past weekend. Maybe Monday's montage. Monologue Mondays, Gabe says. I don't know. Dylan, if everyone can stay healthy, I think we have a good team. Everything has to fall our way. Either way, I am screaming who dat. As well, you should be screaming who dat. You should be screaming who dat. Even if you're if you're not as positive on this team as I am, doesn't matter. Just because I don't think they're going to be. Look, again, I'd love to be proven wrong. I want to cover a winning team. Jerry. Good morning, Jerry. Who Dat Nation? And most certainly A-Town, RIP at Daniels. Jerry says the same thing. Jerry wasn't thrilled about Sunday night. You know, I got to say, I was on the Saints Insider Show, also on NOLA.com. They have their own YouTube page, by the way. Check them out. I went on. They have a show right after the game. Within a half an hour after the game, they go on live, and Zach Ewing asked me to go on for a little bit. And someone said a similar thing. And I don't necessarily feel that way. Look, you can't judge a final score. Saints lose 16-10. Who cares? The first team's play, especially on offense, was much better than it was last week. I'm going to get into it all again. I thought Trevor Penning was better. I thought the entire offensive line, first team offensive line, was better. Landon Young had some issues, but really, I thought for the most part, if they play like they played with the first team offense, they can be in games and maybe do better than I think they're going to do. Good morning, Rocky. Thank you. I look good, he said, on the old tube. Oh, you mean on the I was also on the pregame show yesterday. So, look, we're trying to get this podcast out. So it's not just y'all. I want everyone to know about what we're doing here so we can have even more fun on Monday. I don't care how many comments we get. We'll stay here for, look, I don't want to have hour and a half shows, but if we get that many comments, maybe we will. Who knows? We'll see how long. That's a good thing about a podcast. There's no like, okay, at 11:21, you got to go to commercial break for 4 minutes. And at 11:36, you got to do this. And 11:59, the show's over. No. If we want to cut it off at 11:40, we cut it off at 11:40. We want to cut it off at 12:20, we do that. Whatever. We're going to have some clips, as I said earlier. Dennis Allen, look, one very important clip that I don't think anyone else is really picking up on. The clip on what he thought about on the loss and his, what he said. And I think, again, he was tempered, but I think he saw what I saw. There were things to be positive about. But there's one clip that I'm going to run toward. We're going to get through some of these things. Again, I want to get through the positives before I get to the QB2 race. I told you last week that I thought he was kind of tipping his hand and telling you who the number 2 quarterback is. I don't think there's any question now. If you listen to what he says, I think his mind's made up. And I'm not going to play that clip right now. I'll get to that because we got a few things first, but that clip's coming up. Also, we hear from Derek Carr. What does he think about that drive? You see the stats on the right side of the screen. 7-9. And I know it's only 47 yards, but hey, and y'all can joke about dink and dunk and check down or whatever. I don't care. 16-play drive. This running game is different, okay? I don't know yet. One thing I'll say about the offensive line through what I've seen is the pass blocking in the first game was absolutely atrocious, but I thought the run blocking maybe was okay, and it certainly improved this week. I think that whatever they talked about, somebody lit a fire under their ass this week because there was a different team on offense, that first team offense. Now, after the first team offense, I don't know. Again, something else we're going to get to. So we'll hear from Derek Carr, hear what he said, and then we're going to hear from maybe who I think is the most improved Saint so far in this preseason. I don't even think it's close. I mean, you could tell me if you think I'm wrong. Maybe I'm forgetting someone. But I think the most improved Saint so far in this preseason is Brian Bresee. I think he has turned himself into a legit starter. What I saw at the end of last year to now, completely different player. Now, he whiffed a couple times, but he was in the backfield and he was making spin moves. Man. Calvin. I don't think I've heard from you, Calvin. So welcome to Dattitude. The Jamal runs were good, but if 41 had them holes to run through to the house, maybe so. You might be right. I am high on Jamal Williams, though, by the way. I think Jamal Williams is going to play a key role. I said it weeks ago. Somebody who we're not really talking about, who we should be talking about, Jamal Williams. Alvin Kamara cannot, assuming he's back, by the way, I mean, is anybody else worried that his contract's not done? That's a whole nother story. We may talk about that later in the week. Anyone else concerned that his contract's not done yet and he's not out on the field? Dennis Allen says it's not anything to worry about. I don't know if I agree with that. Rocky. Chase Young is an absolute animal. There's no question about it. This defense, look, we joked that they might have to put together shutouts after shutouts. I mean, it's a joke because you just can't do it. I mean, I think one year, not too long ago, the Saints, within the past decade, I think, maybe it was the Super Bowl year, so that would be longer than a decade, but within the realm of the Sean Payton era, which is kind of the modern era, I guess, I think they had 4 or 5 shutouts one season. I'm almost certain the Dome Patrol did, and I know that the Dome Patrol had many games where they held teams to single digits. Will this team have to do that? I don't know. But that front line is by far, at least now, again, it's preseason, not trying to get too hyped, but the front line, the one that couldn't stop the run last year, I think it's going to be a little bit different this year. They may still struggle a little bit with the run, but it's going to be tough to pass against that group. They're going to get pressure. Chase Young, I agree, an absolute beast. Not going to go into, I like to talk about personal. It was pretty tame weekend. What'd you guys do this weekend? And you ladies do this weekend? When I guess the highlight of my weekend was we tried out a new restaurant, and it's not new. It's been around for decades. I had never been there. Jack Dempsey's, give him a shout out. Good. We had a good time. I had some friends that were we were trying to the second half of celebrating my daughter's birthday and some other things, and they went and did some other things. So there was a group of us that went, loved it. So shout out to the people at Jack Dempsey's. We had a good time. It's too hot to do anything too much right now. My birthday's coming up in 10 days, and I can't wait till August is over. I don't even care about when you get to my age, you don't care about your birthday anymore, but I'm just looking forward to that. I'm talking about the first real cool front when it gets to like 86 in the day and the humidity's gone. That's when I'm happy. So anyway, you don't want to hear about that. Let's move on because we got to bring on Gabe in just a minute. But first, before we talk about, before we get to Gabe and talk more about the Saints, and we're going to obviously spend 90% of the show on the Saints. Well, the Saints' first team offense at least calmed down Who-Dats for the moment. I know one group who's always calm and always at the top of their game. Yep, you guessed it. It's our friends at Evangeline Securities. They're not just thinking about next week or the start of the regular season. Rather, managing partners Nick Braden and Ronnie Hemelt have a long-term goal in mind. Your long-term goal. That's right. If you've been pondering selling your family-run or privately held business, Nick and Ron can get the ball rolling by helping you figure out the toughest part of it all, answering what your business is worth. You don't know what it's worth. Little Jack down the street doesn't know what it's worth. Uncle Leo doesn't know what it's worth. No. Nick and Ron, they might not even know what it's worth, but they can help you figure it out. How do they do this? They do it by maximizing the value of your business and scheduling a complimentary valuation. Oh, and Nick and Ron both grew up in New Orleans, went to Jesuit High School, then learned how to tackle the financial world at big-time business schools and for a decade or so in New York City. Then they came home to the Crescent City to help the people they care about most here in Southeast Louisiana. They have offices on Poydras Street and in Lafayette. More on this later in the show before the extra point. But in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. A-Town. Love Jack Dempsey. House of Seafood in Bush. We went there a few months ago. We try to go there at least once a year. That's about 45 minutes from where I live. Mike Prima. I don't even know how to. What's up, people from, is it Bayou Chico? Is it Chico, Louisiana? Who dat? Am I pronouncing it right, Mike? Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Again, as we go along, if you've got a comment or a question, feel free to pass it along because we're going to spend time. We're going to hear from Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, Brian Bassett in a little bit. All right, first off, before we get to all that, you know what else we do on Mondays? Monday is partly about Monday's Gabe. What you got for me this week? this week, this Monday, whatever.
Well, first off, I was a little taken aback with the Seinfeld reference with the Uncle Leo. Didn't really expect that, but I appreciate it.
You know what's funny is it just came out, and as soon as I said it, that's what I thought of.
You know? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I didn't mean to. It just came out that way.
I'm putting in times for chapters for YouTube, and I heard Uncle Leo.
It's the watch. Watch, Jerry.
So keeping it with New York themed. I had a question for you on this Monday. Have you ever caught a home run ball or a foul ball at a baseball game?
I have. Multiple.
It must be nice. I've never done it.
Okay.
I've never experienced the joys of that because for my entire lifetime, there's a vulture named Zach Hampel.
Okay.
That has been attending ballparks. Zach Hampel is a 46-year-old collector from New York. He's been actively collecting baseballs since 1990 at Shea Stadium. He claims to have caught over 12,000 baseballs in his career. He uses a strategy that includes contraptions, pushing people out of the way, buying extra tickets, extensive research. This man will do anything and stop at nothing to catch baseballs. This includes paying $1,000 to an active duty military member to give up his ticket to the Fort Bragg baseball game. Which
you mean this dude?
Yep, that dude.
I mean, how about that for a quick work on Dattitude?
Yeah, that is Zach Hampel. So he attended the Fort Bragg game, which was for active duty military members only. He claimed to have caught 11 baseballs, caught a lot of heat for doing that, had to issue apologies. The dude's a weirdo. I mean, the picture tells you everything you need to know. He's been known to fight with fans. He gets heckled at games because he pushes kids out of the way. He's pushed kids out of the way to get balls that players toss to the kids. I mean, he will, like I said, stop at nothing. This weekend, he was at Camden Yards.
Okay, I've been there. Good place.
And according to Dan Clark, who is an MLB reporter, Zach Hampel got bumped into a flagpole by an Orioles fan this weekend, and he ate concrete. He missed out on both Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson's home run balls, and based on eyewitness reports, got very upset and aggressive with fans about it. And all I'm going to say, Jim, I usually don't advocate for this, and out of context, I don't advocate for this either. But we need to bring back bullying for people like Zach Hampel. Orioles fans beat him this weekend 2-0, and I couldn't be happier about it. MLB fans should be on high alert, and if you see this man, bully him to high hell.
So if you see this dude is wearing a baseball, I mean, my question would be, at what point is enough? Like, what do you do with all those balls? I mean, does he sell them?
I think he just collects them.
But why? Collect them for what?
Personal gain. Maybe he sells some of them. I think he caught Alex Rodriguez's 3,000th hit, Mike Trout's first career home run.
That's different. That's different. But I would say that if I caught a ball today, unless it was something like that, which I'd probably get far away. I wouldn't even try, to be honest. But if somehow I did get something like that, other than that, I'm giving it to a kid. Who cares?
Oh, exactly.
The major league, I have 2 major league balls that I caught, and they're both in a case somewhere. I mean, to show you how unimportant it really is in the grand scheme of things, I don't even know where they are. I don't even know where they're locked up somewhere. But
I've got signed baseballs that I have no idea where they are.
I mean, people need to get a life. What I did pronounce it right. Mike said it's Chico State Park. Okay. By the way, Jerry asked me, did I get the super seafood? No, dude, I can't eat like I used to. When you get old, even though I'm still fat, when you get old, you can't eat like you used to. I mean, it's one of the, besides waking up and your knees and hips creak in the morning, the second worst thing is that I can't eat half of what I used to eat. So I got like a catfish plate and with some coleslaw. So there you go. But no, and whatever. What did you eat this weekend before I let you go?
It's going to make me sound old. I don't even remember.
Oh man. And you're not old. So there you go. All right. Well, anything football related you want to just shout out real quick? I know you were telling me you drove 2 hours from Houston so you get to the state line and make your bets, your future bets. Anyone particular that you really want to shout out to people?
I've got 2 college football bets that I really like this year. I like Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman at plus 1,500.
Oh, no. Okay.
Here's the thing. He got 4 first-place votes last year, and he's now got a coach who really elevated Michael Penix's game.
Yeah.
And Alabama's win total at some books is 8.5. So you really got to look at the Heisman. This is one of the reasons Jaden Daniels won it last year, is because he really elevated his team. If Milroe can take that team to 9-10 wins, if he can be in the playoff or on the edge, just outside of the playoff, and he plays really well, I think Jalen Milroe, those voters really have shown that they like him. So I like those odds. I think at some books you can get it up to 16-1.
Yeah.
And then the other I really like, and I've got a piece coming out later today on bet.nola.com on this. I like Oklahoma State to win the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are gone. They've won 7 of the last 10 Big 12 titles. Oklahoma State's been to the Big Dance 2 of the last 3 years in the Big 12. They return, I believe, 20 starters from last season, including their starting quarterback and arguably the best running back in the country, in Ollie Gordon. You can get them priced at 8-1 to win the Big 12.
That's
and
not a
I
bad
really
bet.
like those odds.
All right. You know what? I can't endorse the Milroe thing because, look, I've been talking about and it's not because I don't like Alabama. It has nothing to do with that. I think Alabama is actually going to take a big step backward. Their recruiting class, their classes haven't been great. There's a reason why Nick Saban left, and it's not because he's 72 years old and he doesn't like the transfer rules. That's a bunch of hogwash. He left because he knows this team is going in the wrong direction. And I think he got the most out of him he could possibly get. I think Alabama is not going to be anywhere near the same Alabama that we've seen. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I was right about last year being Nick Saban's last year. I said that last July, but I was wrong about Alabama not being a good football team. So maybe I was just a year off. So we'll see. But
I will say, though, I think Jalen Milroe is probably the quarterback who progressed the most from the beginning of the season to the end.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to
really good to end the year.
I don't think they're going to give the Heisman to a team that doesn't win at least 10 games, and I don't think Alabama's.
We'll see.
10
Yeah,
games, so.
No, that's fair. The one thing, speaking of teams who win 10 games, I would recommend to anyone stay away from Garrett Nussmeier Heisman odds, and that's not an indictment of Garrett Nussmeier. He's 13 or 14-1 at most.
Yeah,
books.
it's too low.
And that's just way you're paying a tax for what Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels have done in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and not only that, there's going to be a
a
bias if it's even kind of close. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier to win the Heisman because LSU won it last year. Garrett Nussmeier would have to be head and shoulders above everyone else to win the Heisman. I mean, if it's even semi-close, he's not going to get it because that's how sports writers think. So
they would probably have to win the SEC and go into the college football playoff as one of the top seeds.
Absolutely.
And I just don't see that happening.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right. We won't have Wednesdays with Gabe because we're doing an NFL show, but maybe we'll have Fridays with Gabe. How's that?
Ooh, that sounds fun.
All right. We'll talk to you then.
Sounds good.
All right. Time to move it on, little doggy. Moving on, talking about them Saints. All right. First off, Ray Ibarra. Is this your first time on the show, Ray? If it is, I don't remember talking to you before, but welcome. Looks like we're a zone power run team. Carr might not have to be the savior. Ram it down teams' throats and use play action. You know what? I think there's going to be a lot of trying to ram it down teams' throats. I mean, you just think about it. I mean, it's really not going to be that much different than what the 49ers do, or at least what the 49ers did. I mean, Kubiak comes from a certain coaching tree, and they coach certain ways and do certain things. But I think what they did last night, to me, proves what they can do. Now, whether they'll continue this, who knows? But I don't believe, I've said this before, I don't believe you can't take certain things out of preseason. Scores don't matter, but the way teams look matter. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said in the open. Somebody lit a fire under this first team's ass, because one of the things that I thought was cool, and I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but I also thought it was clear that first team they didn't want to get off the field unless they scored a touchdown. Not after the way they went off yesterday. By the way, Ray says it is his first time posting. Thank you. Welcome to the Dattitude family. You can become a regular like a lot of our other friends that I'm talking to this morning. That being said, I am much more encouraged. Again, scores don't matter. I talk about how people were disappointed and, there was a lot of negative talk and a lot of just people who normally talk not saying anything. I don't want this to sound the wrong way, so don't take this the wrong way. But I think a lot of it had to do with the apoplecticness, I guess is the way to put it. Is that even a word? How many people out there were upset that Spencer Rattler sucked an egg? I mean, let's be real. That's what people were watching. How many people were upset? There are tons of people out there, and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being serious. There are tons of people out there who think Spencer Rattler, or at least did before yesterday, is better than Derek Carr and should be starting over Derek Carr. And I said last week, cool your jets. We're not even sure that Spencer Rattler is going to be number 2 quarterback. But people are just talking, assuming that he's going to be. Derek Carr last night, that whole offense showed you, and I said this on Saints Insider last night as well. If Derek Carr or Eric McCoy I already think this team's kind of, I wouldn't say in a world of hurt, but they're like teetering on the edge of, they could be a 10-win team, they could be a 6-win team, or honestly, that's how hard it is to gauge this team right now. It wouldn't surprise them if they won 10. It wouldn't surprise them if they won 6. So when you're teetering on the edge like that, there are certain spots where you can afford a week off of, if Chase Young's gone for a week, you wouldn't like it, but you could live with it. If Demario Davis was gone for a week, you could like it. You might not like it, but you could live with it. Even if, as much as it would hurt, Chris Olave was gone for a week, you could probably get through it. But if Derek Carr or Eric McCoy misses any time at all, you're in deep bleep. It's just a fact. Last night proved that. Okay, this has to do with nothing, but Gabe tells me that Teddy Bridgewater's team won his high school coaching debut 42-7. Maybe Teddy. I guess I don't know. Teddy probably wouldn't come back now if he's doing that well coaching. But I've said this, we're going to get into the QB2 thing in a minute. But if Derek Carr goes down for any period of time, I don't care who number 2 is. I really don't at this point. Doesn't matter. Neither one of them's any good. Ray says he agrees on Rattler, showed some flashes, but he needs another year. Watch his film and he missed open receivers and his pocket awareness is not there yet. Okay, you know what, Ray and everyone else, we're going to come back to this and come back, but I want to talk more about the positive. Again, I'm more encouraged than I was last week. And that's what preseason is about. It's number one about not getting anyone hurt, and the Saints have not been successful at that. They've got plenty of injuries. They didn't get anyone hurt in the game last night, except for Kool-Aid. And Dennis Allen says they dodged a bullet and then he's going to be okay. But I always try to listen to Dennis Allen's way more straightforward than Sean Payton. Not that Dennis Allen is super straightforward, but at least he gives you something where you can read through tea leaves and you can tell that he's concerned about where this team is, but at least there's more positive than there was. Let's hear this and then maybe get some of your thoughts after you hear this.
But overall, I saw some positive signs. Thought we were a little bit better up front early on. And then I thought as the game wore on, I thought our execution wasn't nearly as good as it needed to be, as we got into kind of our second and third phase with our guys, both offensively, defensively, really, and in the kicking game. A lot of things that we have to get cleaned up, but I did see some things, some positive signs to try to build on.
DA, was that long drive kind of how you envisioned what you want the offense to look like?
Well, look, yeah, I like our ability to be able to run the football, some play action passing game. I think, certainly I'd like for us to be able to get some explosive plays. I know this team that we just played traditionally doesn't give up a lot of explosive plays, so I think we knew kind of going into the game, that would be kind of challenging. But in the way that we were able to run the football, on that drive, I thought that was really, really encouraging.
DA, you getting a feel for your team? I mean, do you have a feel for your team at this point?
Yeah, I got a better feel for them, and yet, I don't think the final verdict's out yet in terms of what we got, or what we're going to be. I know what we're building towards, and I like a lot of the things that I see. I like a lot of things that I'm feeling from our group. And yet there's some things that I think we still got to improve on.
Breaking news real quick before I get to the DA's comments. LSU has 2 players on the preseason All-America team, tackle Will Campbell and, no surprise, linebacker Harold Perkins. Both have made the preseason All-America team. What preseason All-America teams and what preseason top 25 teams mean? Zilch. But anyway, we got some comments in here that I'm going to put up in a second. But look, I think DA knows. Everyone knows. He knows. This is his season. You either do it now or you don't do it. 7-10, you're gone. 8-9, I don't know. 9-8. Who wants 9-8? I mean, 9-8 is like probably worst case scenario because probably don't make the playoffs, and you got to go through all this again. I don't know. So I'm not rooting for him to lose. I want him to go 11-6. I don't think it's going to happen, but you can tell that he knows where they're at. He knows they're like on that line right now. Again, it's going to all how it starts. Not going to put the schedule up there, but if this first team offense can play like they played last night, then you got something to hope for. Again, and specifically, we talked about Derek Carr, and I'm going to hear from him in a second. But how about Trevor Penning? Look, everyone who listens to this show more than once or twice, I've been as critical of Trevor Penning as maybe anyone else in the media. I'm saying it's time to give up the shit. I'm going to tell you if I'm wrong. If he comes out and plays kind of like he played last night in the regular season and can do that, then maybe he will be okay. A lot of other media members point out, what do you have that's better? I don't know. They put in Ali Udo, and he played the entire second half. Was he better? I don't know if he was better. He wasn't worse. But, I mean, I'd give Trevor Penning last night a C, which is certainly better than an F-, which is what he got last week. And actually give him probably a B on his run blocking last night. And I thought his pass blocking was okay until towards the end he got kind of bowled over a couple of times. Definitely didn't do any favors for Spencer Rattler. I will say that. So Sean H asked, would I say some of the final O-line pieces will come from other rosters after final cuts? Yes to maybe pieces, because I think there will be players that get – I mean, talked about this with Larry Holder on Friday and multiple times actually with Larry. And I think Larry thinks that basically if they were going to do something, they kind of would have done it already. So as far as starters, no, I don't think anything's going to change. Now, I know there are people – Taliesin Fuango, he's hurt. Everything that seems to be that he'll be okay with the start of the season. If he's not okay with the start of the season, Landon Young got destroyed. I mean, Landon Young isn't any better at left tackle, I don't think, not from what I saw, than Trevor Penning. I mean, Ali Udo and Rocky saying that he thought Ali Udo played okay. Yeah, he played okay. Remember when Larry and I were talking a couple weeks ago about fine, he's fine. Yeah, that's not what you want to hear. Robbo Combs says the Saints are going 7-10. They don't have the horses this year. I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert too much. But again, look. So if Penning can play like he played last night, that's good enough. In this case, fine is okay. Because if this offensive line is like, I don't know, as long as they're not 32nd. I mean, if this team can do, they showed you what Clint Kubiak's ideas are. He's going to try to find ways to get Derek Carr is not the most mobile quarterback in the world, but if you could find ways to get him, there was one play where everybody moved to the left, Derek Carr did the play action and kind of rolled out to his right, and I think found Olave for a short pass. But they're going to find different ways to where it's not going to be 1-2 man in your face. He's going to be moving. How do you do that? You establish the run. Okay? Because they don't know if the run game's coming. Last night, they showed you play action pass can be effective because the run game's effective. If the run game's not effective, no one cares if you can fake the run. You're going to sit back and wait. Are you going to run or not? Meanwhile, the edges are going to come and blow up your tackles. But they were much better at it last night. That's got to continue. And I'm going to tell you right now, I had a couple doubters last night tweeting at me when I said I thought the 16-play, 95-yard drive was super impressive. I don't care who it's against. Oh, it's against second team. I don't care. I don't care if it's against 49ers second team defense, and it wasn't all the second team, by the way. But their second team, and their Bosa wasn't in there, of course. It was half twos. But you know what? Doesn't matter. I thought the play calling was outstanding. You go on a 16-play, 95-yard drive, 8 minutes and 17 seconds. That's saying something. And again, you could tell Derek Carr basically said to Dennis Allen, I ain't coming out of this game till we score a touchdown. Now, they wouldn't have scored in that drive. He wouldn't have had a choice. 4th and 1, Taysom Hill doing his thing. But look, I think Derek Carr feels a lot better about this team after that one drive. That kind of drive can change mentalities. I know he feels a little bit different about it. Minute and 8-second clip here.
Yeah, I think it feels good for the coaches too. For us to execute, we had a couple explosives in there, some 4th down. Young players, different guys playing different spots, but it's always hard to in the preseason because you're just calling like the basic, stuff no one wants to show anything, but still like the competitor, and you still want to go out there and compete and and make something happen. And so being able to go down and get a touchdown, punch it in, it definitely was like kind of like a monkey off the back, like kind of like a relief, like all right, we can score, So it definitely felt nice to do that. Like everything is going to be off the run game, because then it opens up the play actions, all the different stuff, the bootlegs, everything. And so for us to do what we want to do, that's what it starts with. And so to see that come together, and that's the real cool thing about the preseason too, is like that's the time to get those live reps of the run game, because you can't cut guys. You're not really taking your guys to the ground in practice and stuff like that. So this is full tilt, real runs, and I'm sure it made the offensive line, the backs, and the tight ends feel good about what they were doing.
That's what I'm saying. I know it's a preseason drive, but it meant something because after they looked the week before, it meant something to these guys. They played like it meant something. That's what you want. You see the numbers on the side of the screen. Jamal Williams, 5 carries, 27 yards. I thought he was better than last week. I thought Jordan Mims was better than last week, even though that's only a 3.7-yard average. And Taysom Hill lining up a lot in the backfield. How much are we going to see Taysom Hill as a running back? I think it might be quite a bit, and especially if AK is not going to be ready to go. No one said that he's not ready to go, but no one's talking about him either. The more they don't talk about AK, the more it worries me. Rocky says, thinks James Robinson is in, Kendra Miller is out, or at least an IR. I think Kendra Miller there's almost zero chance he makes this 53-man roster. Again, I said this before, everybody's talking about cut. There's really no reason to cut him because you can put him on IR and then figure out what to do with him later. But I don't think it's James Robinson. I don't think they're going to keep 4 running backs, especially with Taysom Hill there. I don't think it's going to be James Robinson. I think it's going to be Jordan Mims. One of those guys is out. It's either Mims or Robinson. And I think, look, I feel bad for Robinson because I think he's done okay. He definitely played better yesterday. But I think Mims is got way more upside, more promise. He's young. I'd like to see what he can do at this point. A-Town says, Penning didn't end up on his keister. No doubt about it. Ray says, He agrees Miller might not make the cut. Mims is going to be the third running back. I don't see how he can't be at this point. All right, I want to talk about the defense before we move on to the QB2s because we got I want to get to the extra point, and we're going to try to hold the show to an hour today. I thought the defense was even better than they were. The first string defense, that is. I thought the first string defense was even better than they were against Arizona, and they were pretty damn good. I mean, I don't know how many other ways to say this. Chase Young is not just a beast. He's a difference maker. How many times was he in the backfield? One point he had Purdy like doing pirouettes and stuff, trying to get around him. I mean, outstanding. And you're talking about having him on one side, Granderson doing his thing, Brissett, if he's as improved as I think he is, and you got Cam Jordan kind of lining up at different places. Then you got your linebackers playing as well as they're playing. We don't know where Willie Gay is going to be. I mean, I'm not trying to, again, I don't want to get too overhyped, just like I don't want to get too negative. But this defense could be the best defense this team's had in a while. And again, after last year, and they certainly were a disappointment at bare minimum. You got to be able to stop the run, and they couldn't do that. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about with this defense. And again, I'm going to go back to Brissett because I think what he did, what he was able to do and changing his game and being more dominant on the inside, if this guy can be the legit first-round kind of pick that you hoped he would be, turned out to be, man, I think if he turns into something and you got Chase Young stays healthy and you got Cam Jordan, I don't want to say playing in a spot role, playing a different spot with Granderson and what he did last. I mean, Zach said last night he thought the Saints could have 50 sacks this season. That might be a little bit much, but you can tell Brissett's starting to figure it out. The light's starting to click, and it's great that it's this early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, there's different varieties of ways to get a lineman to do certain things that you want them to make rushes happen a certain way. So, just trying all that kind of stuff out and seeing what works.
And I know you have a full year's worth of tape, but do you find that offensive linemen are still surprised by your spin move at all?
I mean, it's all about setting that up, So you got to do different things in order to kind of set that move up. But I try to pull it out when I hope it's going to work. And I think just setting moves up the right way, and whether it's a spin or any other move, just setting things up the right way, and that's kind of the main thing on different moves.
Is that kind of like the natural part of playing in the NFL, figuring out what works for you, what doesn't? What is that process been like?
Yeah, definitely. And there's always different ways to work, like different moves, whether it's just a feel thing and you get too high on a rush and need to come back, or if it's something you set up in your mind where it's going to be your first move. But again, just it's two different games, so there's obviously different things that work in college that don't work here, and so you got to find whatever works for you and really perfect those couple of moves. Yeah, I mean, I think it's starting to. It's obviously not completely there yet, and there's a lot of room I still have to grow. But things have definitely kind of slowed down a little bit for me, and it's allowed me to kind of play more free and just play fast.
That's the key when rookies come in and they talk about how they don't realize how fast the game is. And I think maybe that was Brissett's issue last year. Because there were times, especially earlier in the season, when I thought he was lost. Now, I thought he played better towards the end of last year. But what I'm seeing so far is a huge reason to be optimistic about what he can do. And again, if he can play any big role in the interior of this offensive line, because really that's been where the Saints have lacked more than anything the past year or two. It's on the inside. I mean, Ray's right. He says we still have trouble with scrambling quarterbacks. Showed that last night against Josh Dobbs, although Josh Dobbs was playing against Saints twos. Got to figure that out. Maybe the scheme was so vanilla, but that quarterback killed us with many last year too. I mean, you're not going to have to worry about Josh Dobbs, but go down the list and you think about who they have to play. I mean, you open with Bryce Young, and he's not really a mobile quarterback. Dak can move, but he doesn't really do it unless he has to. Then you got Jalen Hurts. Saints ain't beating the Eagles. Sorry. I mean, spoiler alert, Saints aren't beating Jalen Hurts. They're just not. Then you got week 4, Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is a mobile quarterback. And week 5, you got Patrick Mahomes, and it is what it is. And week 6, Baker. Week 7, probably Bo Nix. So it's kind of what and what. But I agree. There's no doubt that the Saints, Bo Nix is white lightning. I don't know about that. You know what I think about Bo Nix. Anyway, look, I like where this defense is. And I think one thing Chase Young does is he does help you at least contain a mobile quarterback, right? I think he helps. You got to be able to seal the edges. I think that maybe they can do that this year. Not necessarily with Jalen Hurts, but maybe, and not with Patrick Mahomes, maybe with the others. We'll see. All right, now I want to get to the QB2 race, okay, before we move on to the extra point. Because I got one more clip to play, and I promised to tell you. I told you last week, I thought Dennis Allen was kind of tipping his hand a little bit on who had won the number 2 job. He had said last week that he had basically made up his mind, but didn't tell you who. Anybody who watched that game last night with, what's the right word to say? Without bias. As Big Sean says, defense will have to bail us out a lot this year. There's zero doubt about that, Big Sean. No doubt they're going to have to bail us out. I thought last night, again, if you watch that game, I think I'm not railing on him. He's a rookie, and he's got a lot to learn. And Jake Haener is basically one step up from a rookie. I don't think Haener was great. I don't think he was even good, to be honest. He was good at times, and he was really bad at times. That little thing where they had to overturn the fumble, I don't know what he was thinking there. Just eat it, son. I don't know what he was thinking there. That could have been a big play if that was a real game. I don't think either one of these quarterbacks are ready to play in a real game. So it just goes to show something happens to Derek Carr, you're hosed, and why I've said over and over again that I think that if Derek Carr got hurt and it looked like he was going to be out for any significant amount of time, I think the Saints would scour the wire and see what was out there, who to bring in. I don't even know who they could bring in. I mean, somebody's going to get cut that's going to sit on a waiver wire. Teddy Bridgewater's, maybe you could lure him out of retirement if you needed to. But Spencer Rattler's not even kind of close to being ready. And I think last night, again, I can't believe that more people aren't talking about this because they're not right now. But if you listen to what Dennis Allen said, he's basically telling you, I think, and I could be proven wrong next week, but he's basically telling you that Jake Haener is the number 2 quarterback. You listen to it and you tell me what you think. 42 seconds here.
Yeah, it'd probably be unfair for me to, say. I mean, I thought there was a couple plays there late in the game where I thought Jake did some really nice things. I thought it was a little, kind of disjointed, when Spencer was in there, and I don't think it was all his fault. I mean, the one play, the ball's on the ground on the snap, so, we'll have to go back and look at it. But, I really thought there were some good things that we did, with the first group. And yet there's some things that we have to be better at. And then I thought, after that, it was a little inconsistent and sloppy at times.
I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think he basically just told you that Jake Haener is the number 2 quarterback. And I mean, be realistic. Just from everything that I've heard is Rattler also had a fairly rough week in camp this week too. I'm not trying to poo-poo on him. Again, just because I don't think that, I'm going to make it clear. I mean, if you haven't watched the show in the past, I don't think Spencer Rattler, I don't like that pick there. I know I'm in the vast minority. I don't like the pick at the 5th round. There's a reason why other teams passed on him. I don't think he's going to be a starting quarterback. That being said, he definitely has a skill set that a lot of other players don't have, and maybe he can be developed into something special. It's a possibility. But he's not ready to go right now. And it wasn't just because of last night. I don't know. I just, not that Jake Haener is, I just think from the perspective of if you had to have one of those 2 guys go in right now and do something for you, I'd rather have Haener. And it doesn't matter what I think or you think. It matters what Dennis Allen and Kubiak think. And if you can read through those lines, because that's one thing that Dennis Allen, you can hate him all you want. but he's way more straightforward than Peyton, and he's a lot easier to read tea leaves with. Sean Payton ain't telling you jack. And he's still trying to fool people into thinking that Bo Nix might not be the starting quarterback. Give me a break. Everybody and their grandma who watches Good Morning Football knows Bo Nix is starting. Whether he should or not, I don't even care. But Bo Nix is starting for the Denver Broncos. There you go. Anything else before we move on to the extra point? Because I do want to talk about Ed. Rocky, a little back and forth between our Rocky and Big Sean. Big Sean wants to know why he thinks the D will have to keep us in games and the offense has to be better than last year. Rocky, you're putting way too much stock into Clint Kubiak. All the things that I said that are positive today, will they be better than last year? The scheme's going to be better. The play calling's definitely going to be better. There's zero doubt the play calling will be better than it was last year. That won't take much. I mean, I could probably throw Gabe to the Wolves and let him call the plays, and he'd be better. But that being said, I'm not going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over this offensive line because they played okay last night. I mean, that's what Big Sean says. Worried about if the opponents can stop the run game. They have to start passing more. That's when the picks I wouldn't say the picks. Don't be hating on Carr too much. Doesn't throw a ton of picks. He really doesn't. But we do have a lot of 3-and-outs. Before we move on, last thing here. If you got something else, you can put it up there because I'll probably show a couple more comments after I finish the extra point before we go off the air. But Ray says he agrees on Haener. Like to see both of them with the first team next week. I don't know if you're going to be able to. I said, a couple weeks ago that I thought whoever started the game 3 was going to be your QB2. I still think that, and I'd kind of be surprised if it wasn't Jake Haener. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Jake Haener doesn't even, not only that Jake Haener doesn't get a start, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jake Haener doesn't go into the second half. All right. Cannon, I'm trying to understand your comment here. I don't normally read stuff put stuff on the air before I read it, but the man been shining since the beginning. Dennis only worry about his defense, not worry about the offense. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I get why you would think that. I put it this way. I definitely don't think it's fair to say he doesn't care about the offense. Okay. That's a little harsh. He knows more about defense, and he had an offensive play caller his first 2 years here where didn't belong there. Is that his fault? Maybe. Maybe he was forced to keep Pete Carmichael. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes because this team is loyal to a fault. How many times do I have to say that? This team's loyal to a fault. Maybe they didn't let him fire Pete Carmichael. Possibility. Now it's no excuses now. All right, we're going to get to the extra point again. Before I go off the air, I'll probably take a couple more comments. I know we'll probably get a couple more on the Saints, and then we're going to go. We're going to wrap it up for this Monday morning. Well, while there's a little more reason to be hopeful, this number one offense can be at least good enough to score every now and then. You know who always gets past the goal line? Yep, you got it. Evangeline Securities. For owners of family-run or privately held businesses, your dream of retiring or moving on to the next chapter of your life is very much alive. So consider our friends at Evangeline sort of like the fullback. Maybe they're the Taysom Hill of your team. You run behind them, and you're going to get in the end zone. After they help you figure out what your business might be worth and whether it's time to sell with a complimentary valuation of your company. If you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ryan Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from established private equity funds from around the world. And then they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform, and there are very few companies, very few, like them in this area. None with their dedication and success. You can trust them. They are fully licensed, and they are ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangeline.com. evangelistsecurities.com. Okay. It is time to move on, I think. I can figure out what I'm doing here. Okay. Quite often, we hear it bandied about that football is different in Louisiana, and more specifically, Southern Louisiana. We know that it's true, but when trying to explain it to outsiders, we can't always put into words exactly how. It's not just because our players are better, they are, or that our tailgating is better, that's not debatable, or that the atmosphere in our stadiums generally is unlike those in other parts of this great country. The reason those things are true are because of our people. We talk different. We eat different. We live different. And our passion leads us to listening to those in the know who have dedicated their lives to telling us the story in their own personal way, in a way no one else can. In the 70s and 80s, and after a Saints game, I turned to Hap Claudia to tell me why Archie Manning was sacked 11 times or how long it would be before the current coach was going to be fired. Oh, and Buddy D and his squirrels. You could never predict what would be said either by Buddy or the pissed off Yats who would call in and offer their own dime on any given Sunday. His impact was so that it got more than 10,000 dudes to wear a dress and march down Poydras Street. It did it on one glorious, cold January morning in 2010, 5 years after his death. Of course, you couldn't wait to pick up the Times-Picayune and read what Peter Finney and Bob Rossler had to say. Ain't there no more. That's what we grew up with. Even in the worst of football times, we always cared enough to listen and to read what the voices of New Orleans had to say. Sadly, in today's Extra Point, we honor one of those voices who measures right up there with all of those legends. This time, it's someone I considered a friend. But of course, Ed Daniels was a friend to anyone who has spent time in the New Orleans sports media world, whether it's more than 30 years like myself or whether you were an intern who worked one football season covering LSU or the Saints or Tulane or anything else around here. That's who Ed was. He cared who you were, and he cared as much or more than any journalist I ever knew. Whenever I went to cover a game on a Friday night, I hoped I'd run into Ed, to give him a jab about his St. Louis Cardinals, and he'd come right back with a joke about my hapless Chicago Cubs. I'd poke at him that the megaphone was leaving the trophy case of his Rummel Raiders and back to Marrero and my Shaw Eagles. But mostly, whenever I got a chance, I'd pick his brain on what he thought about local sports, because no one knew more about everything than Ed Daniels. Not only did he cover it all, of course, the Saints, LSU, Tulane, and the Pelicans, but Delgado, UNO, Southern, Nichols, Xavier, the NOLA Gold, whatever. He covered every New Orleans sport event like it was the most important thing on the docket that day. And he covered the people who didn't get a mention from anybody else. And along with his best friend, Ken Trahan, and the greatest high school coach ever to walk a sideline in America, J.T. Curtis, coverage of high school sports were transformed in this area. Friday night football became a staple for not only prep fans, but for those who had moved on and wanted to see how their alma mater did that night. For 32 seasons, FNF was a must-watch. No matter if I got home at 11 p.m. from my game or 2 a.m., I watched Ed and Coach JT before I went to sleep. So did tens of thousands of others. And again, it wasn't just the coverage. It was how he covered it. People loved and respected him because it was obvious the feeling was mutual. In the infancy of this podcast 3 years ago, Ed joined me on episode 21 to talk about the 30th anniversary of Friday Night Football and how the show started, how they endured, and what has made it so successful. The truth is, it's been successful because of the dedication Ed had, not to only just prep football, but to his city. We joked about whether the show would make it to a 50th anniversary. And once again, we would be shown very shortly thereafter how fragile life can be. When the word came down last month that Ed had suffered a massive heart attack, and it was clear the prognosis wasn't good, it didn't stop the heartbreak Friday when we learned of his passing. To show the incredible love he had gained, just jump on X or Facebook, and it won't take long to find out what I'm talking about. At one point, Ed Daniels was one of the top trending stories in America on X. My feed was filled with literally hundreds of tributes from my colleagues in the media, coaches, former players of sports fans, many of whom don't even live here any longer. That's because Ed Daniels was one of us. And he will always be cherished as a local treasure and a New Orleans icon. God bless you, Ed. That is going to just about wrap it up for today. Got anything else in the queue before we say goodbye? We do. Let's see if I can get this right. Sean, do you think it's playoffs or bust for DA? That's a question. Do I think it should be or will it? I think it should be, but I don't think it is. I think if he does what he did last year and goes 9-8 and they missed the playoffs, I think he's back, especially if the offense shows promise. So yes and no. I don't know. Jerry, Jerry's going to be the last comment we show. Jerry remembers watching Ed Daniels back in the late 80s as a kid, and look, I work with a lot of people I respect, but I tell you, it was so cool to be able to be around him at different times because he was in this business before I started. I don't remember exactly when he started at WDSU. It was in the 80s for sure. I think it was while I was still in high school. So that's how long he's been in the business. And again, I've been in it it'll be 34 years later this month. Long time. Ed will certainly be missed by a lot of people, not just me. Again, I can only say that I hope that one day when my time comes that I get a 10th of the love that he gets, because it just goes to show you how big of a deal he was around here. Not just Friday nights that are not going to be the same, like it says there. Be a lot more than that. All right, I want to thank Gabe Henderson as always and his help. And, of course, Mondays with Gabe. We're going to do Fridays with Gabe this week because we're moving up our schedule this week. Larry Holder has something. He's going to play tennis. He's in a tennis tournament on Friday. So we're moving up our schedule. We'll have part 6 of our 8-part series on previewing the NFL division by division. Larry Holder will be with us on Wednesday when we predict the NFC West. We should know a little bit about the NFC West because we just saw San Francisco 49ers, who are obviously the big favorite. Do we think the Niners are going to win the division? Maybe one of us does, and maybe one of us doesn't. Maybe we both do. Maybe neither one of us does. Maybe that we think there's a surprise in the division. I don't know. You want to come back and check it out? So, of course, though, we're going to spend at least half the show talking about the Saints and where we think the Saints are. You can also catch me this afternoon, Monday afternoon, on Eric Asher's show, as I do every Monday, inside New Orleans on the Ticket 106.1 FM in New Orleans and online at 4:35 p.m. We usually go 4:35 to, I think, 4:55. Be sure to look for all of Gabe's great stuff, previewing the season and more at bet.nola.com, and all of our Saints beat writers at nola.com/Saints. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page if you haven't already done so. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also have access to all of our great shorts. That's also on TikTok. We're doing real well. And a lot of people wanted to check out my preview, a little 1-minute preview. Who knew? We're all gaga over that. Whatever way you like it. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And as always, you can find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. That is going to do it for us on Monday. We will see you in a couple days. Try to get past the Monday blues. We will see you on Wednesday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.